All right, so we take all of that information and we say, that sounds pretty, that really seems to, it only makes sense. Hello. You do realize that nearly everything that we do in education is like common sense stuff, and everybody repackages it with a new name. You know how many workshops I've been to with a new name? Yeah, you've been there too. That's why I don't bother to do much handouts. I figure you've already got it under another name file somewhere that you didn't read it 20 years ago, so why would I give it to you again? So let's talk about class. Some of my thoughts on classrooms. These are my own. Now, what I just gave you, all that other stuff, that stuff you can go online somewhere and dig out and find, and they can kind of, it's actually good business. It's under business stuff. You go to business practices, that's business practices. I took it and looked at it and went, you know what? Well, if it's good for business, it's good for me. So let's use it in the classroom. So I started using it in the classroom. Well, let's talk about some things in the classroom. Let's talk about what I call grade worth. Now, there's a little disclaimer here. This is an editorial comment by Johnny Wells where grades are concerned. This is by no means any study that has been done anywhere. In the United States, there's a perception among parents and students that what happens in school is that I take my child, I enroll them in school, and I put them into a classroom, and I give to the teacher and to the education system 100 students. Here is Randy. Come here, little Randy. This is my little Randy, and I love him very much, and he is 100 student. They don't say that, but you watch the body language, and you watch what they say about him. He's 100 student, and you shove him into the room. Now then, here's what happens in the room. In fact, he goes home at the end of the first 6 weeks with a 90. The perception is, from the parents and from the child, that we take away from students. That we are starting out with 100, and what the teacher does is digs at and pulls away and takes away from the student and makes them not a 100 student anymore now, but a 90 student. Well, let me tell you what I tell my students. Look, people, you came in this room, when you walked in here, you're 0 people. You don't have 100 when you walked in that door. You are 0. And the reason I tell you that is because, guys, I want you to be proud. If you walk through that door with a 70, you have gained 70% since you walked through that door. That is awesome. It is awesome. This class is going to be about you building stuff up and you taking out of here some stuff, and you're going to be proud of what you walk out of here with. If you walk out of here with a 50, you need to hold your head up and say, you know what? I came in with nothing, and I've got 50% more than I came in here with. That's not a bad thing. That would be nice if I could pass and go to the next grade, but I'm still at a 50%. You know what? Listen to the language of students. How many did you miss? They didn't say how many did you get right. They said how many did you miss. They asked the question, oh, Mr. Wells, how many questions on this test? There are 100. How much does each one count off? Well, first of all, you should be able to do the math, but that's neither here nor there. How much do they count off? Notice the language. We're subtracting. We're not adding to, we're subtracting. You just graded a stack of papers. Guess what you wrote on the top of the paper? -6, -5, minus, get this one I love, -0. We don't even write +60 because there were 60 questions on the paper. We write -0. That is the perception of grade worth. And we go through our life with that perception that I'm always a 100 person and life is taking away from me. I'm going to tell you it happens on job evaluations. You're evaluating someone. You don't say, oh, gee, I ranked a 3 on this evaluation. Good for me. I started this job with nothing. You look and you say, well, I could have gotten a 5. They took 2 away from me. That is a school perception. It's based on grades. So if I'm going to try to affirm my students, I've got to change my thinking on the way I speak about grades and the way I present grades and the way I look at grades. I have to start saying a grade is not about what you lose. It's what you gain. I had this very discussion with my principal and our test person at my school. They kept saying, well, you know, we've got kids that are doing pretty well on these tests, but they're missing like... And I said, would you people quit talking about how many they miss? Could we please talk about how many they're getting correct? I'm a smart person here. I can figure out that if you say we only have 80%, we have 80% correct, I can figure out how much we're not gaining. I get that. But we're so focused on the negative, and that translates to who? To the students. If we in this office are talking about it in the negative always, what we didn't get, that translates over to the standardized testing in the school. So with validation, I have to learn that grades are validating to my... Now then, we want to use them for motivators. Well, let's think about that. We're going to use grades for motivators. And so what we do is, our whole concept is, I want to see how many you didn't miss. Would you do this so I can see how many you didn't miss, please? I want to be sure you didn't miss any. Does that make sense? I should be saying, we're going to do this and see how far you can go with this. How many can you get right on this? I want to see if you can... Well, that's not what that doesn't make sense. So we have to change our thinking about grades. What do I do? Well, on my papers, when I grade them, there's always two numbers. There's a number on top over another number. And it's always the number you got correct over the total number on the paper, the total number of X's. Do I still mark the ones wrong that are wrong? Well, yes, because I don't want to waste that much ink. Because if you're doing 100 paper, you have to write on every one of them. For just simplicity's sake, I only mark the wrong ones. But at the top, I always put the number they have correct over the other number. My students say that it is amazing, because I get the opportunity to teach my students for 3 years, by the way, that when they were 6th graders and the number at the top was so small, by the time they were 8th graders, it was so cool, they said, watching that number get closer to the bottom number all the time. They said, I never really knew what my number grade, my letter grade was, or my number grade, but I got to where I didn't care about the grade as much as watching that number correct over the top get bigger in comparison to the bottom number. It's about what there was possible and what I did, you know. And I listen to the language in my classroom, and my kids are like, so what's your top number? What's your top number? What they want to know is, how many did you get correct? My top number, you know, and then they say, well, your top number is nearly as big as my top number. Well, it takes that whole grade, whether I'm an A student or a B student or a C student, out of there, because we go through life as, and you hear adults all the time say, well, you know, when I was in high school, I was pretty much a C student. Well, it doesn't matter now that you're running a multi-million-dollar corporation. I was pretty much a C student. And they say that, and that's still somewhere in them. That's still somewhere in there. You know, they don't say, well, you know what? I got out of there. I went in with, I was a 0 type kid, and I came out with 70%. I wouldn't do too bad in math. That's not where they go. So the concept of grade worth, we're going to have to think about that. How do we shape that? How does that look to us? We need to watch our language when we grade papers, when we talk to them. We need to look at what we're focusing on. We're focusing on what they're missing and not what they're getting.